Hey everyone, Greg here. As you may know by now, I'm the co-founder and CEO of TripShock, an online reseller for water sports and tours. For the past 12 years, we've had the pleasure of working with hundreds of operators across the country, and we're looking to grow our community. It's free to sign up, and you only pay when we bring you confirmed bookings. We'll help you reach new customers, fill empty seats, and grow your business like so many have done with us over the years. Head over to partners.tripshock.com to learn more about our program, read testimonials, or speak directly with our supply team. As always, thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
They come to relax, enjoy the beach, have fun, and spend money. And that's where we come in. This is the Awkward Watersport Guys podcast. Find out tips on the best ways to market and operate a water sports business. If you're a water sports operator, you need to grow your brand, operate more safely, upgrade your operations, and of course, increase bookings. We're industry veterans, broadcasting from Destin, Florida. This is the Awkward Watersport Guys podcast, and this is Kevin O'Neill and Greg Fisher.
So today's episode, we're going to talk about this boating incident in California that involved the star from Glee, the Fox sitcom. I don't know what you want to. Is it a sitcom?
You are, Greg. Come on, man. Do I look like the kind of guy that sits around watching fucking Glee?
Well, here's the thing. 10 years. It's been going on for a long time, but 10 years ago, my wife and I used to watch this show. She liked it's like a lot of singing and dancing and all that. But I mean, it's a good show. I'll tell you that right now. It's a good show. Maybe you wouldn't like it, but I thought it was a good show.
Is it a musical?
It's kind of like a musical sitcom, about high school kids, like High School Musical. But my wife and I got into it for like a year, and then we didn't. I mean, the singing was good songs, whatever.
All right, well, listen, I'm just really happy that
I'm a nerd, all right?
I'm happy that you have the editing prowess, because I just hopefully when you go back, and I want you to really think about what you just told everybody, I want you to think about that before you go and edit this, because you have the power to erase that from the annals of history. I just but I imagine you by yourself singing and dancing the Glee, like. All right, I'm sorry, man. Anyway, at any rate, so tragically, a Glee singer.
Yeah, Naya Rivera, one of the singers and actresses, she passed away in a pontoon boat rental incident in California. And I sent Kevin the article just because it had to do with our industry, and we just kind of sat there and scratched your head a little bit on this. It was very weird. So just to give you a breakdown of what happened, Naya Rivera, I think she's in her early 30s. She took her 4-year-old son on a pontoon boat rental on a California lake. Apparently they went swimming, and she got caught in a current. They had no anchor, no swim ladder, and she got carried away. And
allegedly.
Yeah, this is all allegedly. We don't know for sure. We're just reading the article. And then they found her son sleeping on the boat hours later because they did not return for their boat. The son said that the mom is no longer there. He said that before she got swept away, she put him on the boat. So all very unusual. Then about a few weeks later, the family I guess the ex-husband, Ryan Dorsey, apparently I think he is also an actor. He filed a wrongful death lawsuit on behalf of the son. So we're reading through it. A couple of the things that just were surprising is that obviously there was no swim ladder. There wasn't an anchor, security mechanisms on the boat, no radio. It just really very strange situation. I figured this might be a great time to just kind of dissect this a little bit, because really, it's very unusual to see, celebrities and our industry kind of combined in one, and just to see it going mainstream. And, the question that is burning in my mind is, according to the article, there was 21 mile an hour power winds that day. Why did the rental company even send them out? Considering when I would rent a boat, especially, even in just a gusty conditions, and I'm talking maybe more than 15 miles an hour, I'm going to probably need some help, especially if I'm not a very experienced boater. And it did say that she has rented before, so I guess she wasn't a newbie at it. But at the same time, you're on a boat and zero assistance if something goes wrong. Obviously, your 4-year-old can't help. I don't know, Kevin, help me out here.
Man, I've seen so much of this stuff happen. I've had, friends die in boating accidents. I've been in bad situations. I've got myself been hurt. I've been on scene for, God, man, for somebody to be doing something so fun and lose their life doing it, it's truly tragic. And I feel for the family, but I'm like one of those type of personalities that, like, when I get sad, I get mad. And I don't get mad like in an irrational way, like how could this have been prevented? Because, like we talked a little bit before the show, it's an accident. And I sing this to the moon and the stars all the time when people are so like, well, how do we prevent this? How can we stop this? Well, you can't. Like, it's an accident. That's why it's called an accident. And it happens with cars. It happens with motorcycles. It happens with jet skis. It happens with boats. Was it the rental company at fault? Well, there's a lot of mitigating factors there. Who was the employee that sent him out? Was it the owner that sent him out? Did they know? Was the owner running like a shoddy operation? And then at the same point in time, if you're an experienced boater, it's like, if I go and rent a car and there's not fucking working brakes on it, I'm going to be like, hey man, you think maybe you have another one that has like working equipment? There's like a whole bunch of stuff. So if it's true that the boat didn't have a swim ladder, if that didn't have an anchor, if it didn't have PFDs, that's pretty bad. At the same point in time, as an ethical and moral person, I also think of myself as a family going, well, we're going to sue this boat rental company. Well, if it were me and my kid got hurt, or something happened during an experience, like again, maybe it's just my moral compass, but I take a lot of personal responsibility. And I feel like, in this situation, it's very difficult, because if you're talking about missing, I mean, it's like missing steering wheel, like that's all, like no ladder, no anchor, and no safety life vest. If it's true, and it didn't have those three things, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as a father, if I get on that boat, I've been boating before, I'm going to be like, hey man, where's the anchor? And then before I even get like you got in the water without throwing an anchor and you've been boating before, that's like the stars are lining up in such a way where, like, something to me doesn't sound like it's adding up. So did they just give her the boat and send her on her way? They didn't go over anything with her. They didn't go over, and when she got out there, she didn't throw an anchor or know that there's an anchor, and then got in the water without throwing an anchor. And then everyone's like, oh, the conditions were, gusty, and it was windy and the current was strong. Like, I mean, halfway out to my destination, I realized that there's something missing like that. You have to turn around and go back. Like, what do you think is going to happen with a boat without an anchor? It's going to float away. And that's the thing is, I've had people call us up and they're like, oh, the boats didn't start and it's not working, and we're just floating. And I'm like, well, have you thrown anchor? And they're like, no. And I'm like, so you're just drifting. And like, and that was the other thing. We're drifting towards other boats. We're drifting towards other boats. I'm like, did you throw anchor? No. I'm like, well, I'm speeding toward this brick wall. What do I do? I don't know. Try the brakes. Like, see if that works, All my guys are always taught right from the very beginning. You talk to and treat everyone like they're 5 years old. And you go over everything. Like, if somebody calls and tells me that, like, the screws have come loose, maybe somebody backed up and hit the swim ladder on something, or during docking, the swim ladder got damaged, and now it's rickety, meaning the bolts have maybe come loose or a bolt has come free or something like that. If my guys don't even better know if the anchor is loose, or not the anchor, but the swim ladder. So this is how we have to be going over our equipment. Now, going back to your initial question of should they even have given her the boat plus 20? No, absolutely not. Because, there's provisions in my insurance that say, that ask if we're monitoring weather. Is it above 17 knots? Like, our conditions favorable for that person to go out. And that's the big one. If they're not meeting, if weather conditions don't meet the criteria for the person to be out there, and it doesn't matter really what water sport it is, then you could possibly be at fault. And you could be at fault to the point where your carrier would deny the claim. Say, hey, look, you rented to them in this weather. Like, we're not going to cover it. So now you're personally on the hook for that lawsuit. And it's not that, well, you're not worrying about people's lives. I just want to like focus on the insurance part of it. But, you know, if they're saying that that the liability rests on your shoulders up to this certain amount of criteria, which, and again, like, all right, let's say it's just 17 knots and there's a storm 10 miles out. Now you're still within the parameters of being safe at that point, but you're right at the threshold. And that's not 10 miles away, 17 knots sustained. Like, that's not that bad. That's not really like a crappy situation, but it's a situation you better keep a very close eye on, because if that sustained wind goes to 18 and within 7 miles, now you're at fault.
Here's another thing in the article I just noticed. They said that in the area that she was in, that she drowned, at least 26 other people drowned since the recreational facilities opened. They could have been open for 20 years for all we know.
Right.
You know, it didn't say, but people have drowned in that same area because of strong winds and currents. So obviously the people that rented the boat were aware. It's so strange that not either the renter or the operator realized that there was not a anchor and a swim ladder. I just find that, knowing that that's probably the purpose of these boats, is to go out, anchor, and swim. So that's the disturbing part of the whole thing, is what really happened. We might never know. It's all speculative, because, you know, this obviously, if they're suing them, then they're going to make it look like operator was at fault.
Yeah, now, and look, there's some things that don't even like that there's safety things, and I know we've talked about on the show before, but there's safety products out there that, again, I wouldn't attest to their efficacy or not. Now, a PFD2, a required life preserver on a jacket, or if you're on if you have an inspected vessel, you have to have an EPIRB beacon, meaning if the boat capsizes, the EPIRB falls in the water, it alerts the Coast Guard, it puts out an emergency signal. This is how people get found by having an EPIRB on the boat. It's like a beacon. Mm-hmm. So things like that the Coast Guard requires on bare bones rentals or captain vessels or in dive boats and stuff like that. So those 100% you have to have. But if there's other things out there that you can get, or that your industry says like, hey, we do this because, it's more safe, like anything you have in your arsenal. Because at the end of the day, look, there's got to be personal responsibility when you're behind, especially a rental. And even if you're on a captain excursion, like, you still have to have personal responsibility. There's double-decker party boats that, these knuckleheads on like a booze cruise or a sunset cruise jumped off the top thing. So, you know what I mean? Like, thank God they were okay, but, they could have been lost. They could have drowned. They could have got hurt, whatever. So it doesn't matter if there's a captain on board or not. Again, you get into that parasail, you get on to the jet ski, you go on the dive excursion. People have been left behind. You've got to have situational awareness and personal responsibility at all times. Look, if I go on an airplane and I strap the parachute onto my back and jump out of that plane, there's a chance it doesn't open. Is it you know what I mean? Is it the manufacturer's fault? Like, sure. Is it the operator's fault? Possibly. But is there some part of it that's my fault? Absolutely. I jumped out of a fucking plane. Unless I've grown skin wings in the last couple weeks.
It's almost like you have two sides. You have like the personal responsibility where, from what we've reading here, she should have said, hey, there's no swim ladder, or hey, there's no anchor, or hey, there's no life jacket. And then obviously the flip side, you have the legal, which if this is true, that they didn't have that on the boats and they weren't properly equipped, then they're probably going to get, be in trouble. But, there's two sides. There's really two sides to it. And you have to, like you said, I mean, if you're driving a car, someone is heading for you, and they hit you, you can't just say, well, they hit me and they, disabled me and it's all their fault. Well, you know what? If a car's coming for me straight ahead, I'm going to swerve. Now, instances where you can't do anything about it, right? Like driver's ed, they talk about defensive driving. You have to be a defensive driver. And you also have to be a defensive renter as well, just to protect your life. Now, if they're negligent, that's different, and you can, you have the right to sue them and collect damages, but you have to protect yourself. You can't go into a situation where, okay, well, if they mess up, I'll get hurt and I'll sue them. No, you got to go in protecting your life and the life of the people that are with you.
And listen, and same goes to the business, because when you sign, every time you go out on anything, you sign that release that says, hey, you could get hurt doing this. You could die doing this. I don't care how benign it is. You go out on a dinner cruise. Like, look at that, remember that Duck Island? They went out there on the lakes in New York and they got hit in a squall line. That was like just a benign tour. They were just on a little tour boat, like driving through, got hit in a squall line. Bunch of people got killed. So it doesn't matter.
That's the Duck Tour, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter, like when we're out of our environment, there's a potential, and so what I mean to say is that somebody could do something like completely out of pocket. You know what I mean? Like, hey man, no one didn't tell me I couldn't jump off this double-decker boat. My kid died, now I'm going to sue the company. And these sort of frivolous lawsuits happen all the time. So you have to make sure that you insulate yourself and make sure that you at all times are going above and beyond the necessary requirements to keep your customers safe, because that's what we should be doing. Like when I look at that tour company, when I look at a captain that goes out in a squall line, I 100% I put that burden of responsibility on those people, especially if you don't have swim ladders and anchors and stuff like that, or captains go out on something crazy and something like I 100% put that burden on you and say, man, what if I was a captain of a boat, somebody got hurt on, if somebody got killed, I would just be like, man, I would be re-evaluating my entire life. So again, I'm the type of person that has a moral compass that takes a ton of personal responsibility. However, I look at everybody else as if they don't. And that's when I'm going out and doing something with my family, and I'm looking at everything that they're offering up and looking at their equipment and looking at their situation, because I have to say, hey, like, what part do I play in this? As a business owner, you have to look at that person as though they're playing no part in it whatsoever, that they might do something crazy. When people sign I have a personal responsibility waiver. And I can't tell you how many people have looked at that waiver, and it's like this big black and white, like, I'm not going to try and, drive this boat up on land. I'm not going to take an axe and try and chop a hole in the boat. Like, it's crazy stuff that I have written on there. So like, I understand that there's metal on this boat and there's sharp edges. I'm not going to swim up underneath, and I understand that there's could be a broken screw, like, and I could cut myself. I understand that I am responsible at all times for what I do on this boat, because a thing that happens all the time, they trim the boat up, they do a half gainer off the boat rail, hit their leg on the prop, and hurt themselves. And so this happens quite a bit. And so that is something completely insane. Like, dude, you're jumping off there's a sharp propeller up out of the water, and you're letting your kids jump off the back of the boat near that prop. Not even off the front, off the back. And we've had incidences where people were doing just that. So people will come up to me and say, like, man, what, so I have this big list of things, like crazy things people have done on our boat. And I'm like, hey, let me know if you plan on doing anything crazier than this. I'll add it to the list. So you have to operate your business and move forward with with the understanding that people have the intention of doing the most craziest things and could get hurt or worse. And that's absolutely the opposite of what we want.
Well, going back to renting to like a father and a really young child, or a mother and a really young child, or, I understand obviously sending them out in high winds is a no-go. But even if, like, let's say you're in an area like a river with strong currents, it's just all the time strong currents. That's got to be a difficult decision for people working, because the father might say, oh yeah, I'm an expert, I've rented 100 times. But let's say he has a heart attack on the boat, or a medical emergency, and the 4-year-old is not capable of operating that vessel. I just think that's a difficult decision because I'm sure your insurance doesn't necessarily specify that, but that's a call that you have to make.
Well,
And
it happens every
liable?
day on jet skis, and the insurance says that, and I mean, like, that could be anything. So you could take your 6-year-old on a hike and get out there in the middle of the forest, and the father could have a heart attack, and the kid would be.
But let's think about a jet ski though. If you're having a medical emergency in the jet ski, you can rev that thing, get to shore real quick.
A 6-year-old could?
No, the adult could. Could get to shore real quick compared to a pond.
He could fall
cruising.
Off. He could get thrown off and not get back to the boat. The current could pull him away, and then the kid would be stuck and lost on the jet ski.
Yeah, that's true. If you're cruising on a pontoon boat or you're trying to anchor a pontoon boat in a strong current, I just don't see how it's very difficult for one person to do that. If someone told your staff, hey, I'm going to go to this area where it's very strong currents, I'm just here with my 4-year-old, I would say that would got to be a difficult decision to say. I mean, you'd have to analyze who I'm renting to. Like, if I don't know.
Yeah, it's difficult because so I don't even put it in my business in the regards of my business. I put it me in my, like, I have a 6-year-old, and so my youngest daughter. I mean, we've gone snorkeling out at the reef. Now, there's another great example. So you could realistically be snorkeling at a reef. You're 7 miles offshore, let's say Key West, and something happens to me. I have a heart attack, and my kid doesn't know or swims away. Now, granted, there's other people there, and all likelihood of that child getting in trouble. But I mean, there was one that I just said that was, and that just came to me. I said, we could go on a hike. You know what I mean? You could be on a hike in the woods. It's you and your 7 or 8-year-old or 6-year-old. And, we were just in North Carolina, and there was points where I was like, are we on the trail? I was like, oh, there's a little yellow tag. That's why they tell you, you have to make a plan.
Yeah.
You have to, we also give all of our customers our actual dock hands numbers. So I've had stuff go down, and my dock hand didn't even call me. Like, he got on a jet ski and was like, he wastes no time, and it wasn't anything crazy, but that's worked with their train to treat every situation as though it could possibly be a serious one. Okay, a lady fell off and got a screw or something, and she cut herself, and it was nothing serious, but my dockhand treated it like it was. He was like, they were like, do you require medical attention? Do you need us to call the Coast Guard? And they did, and they got out there, and everyone was like, why are we here? You know what I mean? And then
you have an emergency plan. For your
absolutely.
You go through that. And you know what? Obviously, we don't know the situation that's happened in California, but I think it's just really important to have an emergency plan. And even if it's, through the operator, and I know I've rented lots to things, and they do talk about, most companies do talk about that, if not all of them I've been to. But renters should also have an emergency plan. What happens if one of us, is unable to, who takes the helm, who's the backup driver? I think it's crazy that one person knows how to drive a boat out of 10 people.
Where are you going? Where are you going is the most important question that you should ask any boater, especially if they're going off on their own. Where are you guys planning on going today? Every single one of our customers we want them to detail what their plan for the day is, so we know where to go find them if they're late. I mean, someone is 15 minutes late, Greg, we're blowing them up. And I've had someone actually call and complain to me. They're like, oh, we were running behind, and your dockhand kept on calling us and trying to, well, yeah, man, because it was getting dark, and, we didn't know where you were, and, we couldn't get a hold of anybody from your group. So, we're concerned. Like, even if you're 15, I don't care if you're 5 minutes late. When you're on that boat and you're on that water and you have a designated place and time to be, and especially if the sun's setting or the wind is bad or there's possible bad weather out there. I mean, we've gone off and I've had 3 guys out on skis hunting down boats that, a squall came in, same thing. And we had to go find them. We had 3 boats out there, and I was one of them. I was on a ski out there. We were out there going hunting, finding them, getting them back, and caravanning back through some bad, nasty weather. But they were with, at the very least, it made them feel comfortable. They were like, oh, we're good. We don't even need you guys to come with us. Like, that's cool. We're coming with you because you don't know these waters. You know, there's 101 things that can go wrong every single day. And it is
everybody
100% our, it's our responsibility to make sure that we have those every event, you know, possibility covered. But there's going to be those situations where you can make all the plans in the world, but shit happens, man.
Every operator should be asking where, you know, their customers are going. I think that's like the biggest thing to take away from this is asking that question. So, I'm going to go ahead and post the articles to this incident in our show notes, and we'd love for you to comment in our Facebook group what you think. What's your dissection of it? Kevin and I just gave our take on it, but it sobers you a little bit when you read things like this as an operator of what could go wrong. And this is, you know, obviously this is a high profile incident. But we'd love to hear your comments on our Facebook group, Watersports and Tour Professionals. If you haven't already, definitely join the conversation. And that wraps it up for our show.
Boom shakalaka.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and keep it awkward.
You've been listening to the Awkward Watersport Guys podcast. If you're in the water sport industry, this is the podcast that brings the business perspective to parasailing, jet and ski boat rentals, sailing, snorkeling, and everything else. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. Be sure to sign up to our email list at watersportpodcast.com and subscribe in your favorite podcast app. We'll see you next time, and thanks for listening.